The rise of evidence-based medicine was a revolution in healthcare. So far, we have seen how the careful gathering and analysis of evidence, such as rigorous clinical trials, is crucial in order to avoid unnecessary suffering. But we've also seen how clinical trials can't tell us everything. RCTs, although very useful, do have their limitations. So what next? Exciting work is being done to help us overcome these challenges, and in this film we're going to talk about groups such as EBMPlus who are working to do so. We asked j.williamson, Professor of Reasoning, what exactly EBMPlus's aims were.
Well, two things really. The first is a better understanding of the role of evidence and mechanisms and how it contributes to decision making in medicine. So we want to understand what medics do and what they do well involving evidence and mechanisms. And the second thing is that we'd like to engage the medical community in a constructive way by helping to offer some advice as to how evidence and mechanisms might be evaluated more explicitly in medicine.
So EBMPlus are aiming to appreciate the potential of mechanistic evidence and to engage the scientific community in their project. But what is mechanistic evidence and why is it so important?
So with my colleague John Williamson, we developed a thesis that has become known as the Russo-Williamson thesis. The thesis says that if you want to establish what are the causes of disease, you need to look for two components. One is the correlation, so what makes a difference to the occurrence of the disease. And the second component is the mechanism, how is the disease caused. And this doesn't mean that these are entirely separate or independent. In the actual scientific practice, they are most often intertwined, but it means that we have to be careful about when we are looking for the correlations, when we are looking for the mechanisms, and when the two act together, so to speak. An important question to ask is why do we need a new thesis about causation and especially about disease causation? So the answer could be nearly all attempts in the past try to reduce causality to just one notion. So causality is correlation, causality is mechanisms, or causality is a counterfactual claim, or things like that. What the thesis does is try to combine different elements that are always at work in the scientific practices, so try to make more with the concepts that we actually use instead of being reductive in a sense.
I think I'm beginning to understand what groups such as EBMPlus are trying to do, but I wonder if they're actually having an impact in the real world and not just in theory. The idea of justifying causality rather than just relying on correlation is a really interesting one, and perhaps most evident with all the recent media attention surrounding new possible carcinogens. Cancer is clearly a disease we still don't fully understand. But maybe it's an example of where looking at mechanisms alongside more traditional evidence is necessary to establish causes and therefore treatments. To find out more, we spoke to Kurt Streif, who works for the International Agency for Research on Cancer.
Well, the idea is that in the IARC monographs we try to identify environmental risk factors for cancer, environmental in the widest, broadest sense, everything that is not genetic, that is modifiable for the better control of cancer globally. And there the idea is perhaps we can come up with conclusions that are then taken forward for action in the absence of what we call sufficient evidence from the cancer epidemiology or sufficient evidence from the cancer and rodent data. And there the mechanistic data can help. And in fact, IARC and the monographs have embarked in that direction many years ago to use mechanistic data to inform cancer hazard identification.
Right, and what sort of success have you sort of achieved so far in terms of progress?
I think it has been formally introduced with the working procedures that we call preamble in 1991, and to use mechanistic data, also defining how they are used to modify the overall evaluation. That is first step coming from the combination of data on cancer in humans and cancer in rodents, and how that can be modified in using mechanistic data, meaning it can be upgraded with good evidence from human cell lines or in exposed humans that there are underlying mechanisms that increase our confidence that this is indeed a carcinogen, a carcinogenic exposure, or that would be very strong evidence showing that indeed the cancers observed in the rodents would not be relevant to humans because it's based on a mechanism that only applies to the rodents.
Right.
These ideas do seem to be having an impact. Institutions like the International Agency for Research on Cancer integrate evidence of mechanisms into their work. As part of the World Health Organization, they are hugely influential in healthcare policy regulation. This is an important step and hopefully signifies a progression in the way we approach medical decisions and policy.
So as groups such as EBMPlus begin to get their message heard, can we start to feel optimistic about the future?
The EBM story is one of hope. At every stage, we have taken steps towards producing safer and more effective healthcare. But if this movement is to gain enough momentum to have a lasting impact, we need to include everyone, from students to policymakers. Only by engaging everybody can we ensure that future healthcare decisions are based on integrated evidence from all the available sources.